I guess we have a quorum. Nobody told me
Okay, it's
anything.
7 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get our meeting started. It's a study session of August the 14th. I'd like to begin our meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gathered is the territory of the Ottawa and Chippewa peoples who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. Thank you for your strength and resilience in protecting this land and inspiring us to uphold our responsibilities to do the same. Again, like we ask for at all meetings, is that those, as we interact with each other tonight, may we do so with respect, dignity, patience, and charity. With that, we will make pledge allegiance to the flag. Mr. Treadwell, would you please lead us?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Werner?
Here.
Commissioner Treadwell?
Here.
Commissioner Shamrow?
Here.
Commissioner Colbert?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson? Here. Mayor Lewis?
Here. Okay. Announcements from the interim city manager, please.
We will be putting out a PSA tomorrow. For Wednesday, we are going to be doing some forestry and safety work out at the Pines. So if you see some activity over there, that's our contractor that is doing some cleanup work in that area.
Okay. Announcements from the deputy city clerk.
Meetings scheduled for this week are the Arts Commission will meet this Wednesday, August 16th at 3:30 in the committee room. The Joint Planning Commission will meet on Wednesday, August 16th at 5:15 at the Garfield Township Hall. The Master Plan Leadership Team will meet this Thursday, August 17th at 3:30 in the committee room. The Coast Guard City Committee will meet this Thursday, August 17th at noon at the air station. And the Downtown Development Authority will meet this Friday, August 18th at 9.
Okay. Thank you. We only had 2 topics on our agenda for the night, and sorry to say, Ms. Kofia notified me at about 5:30 that she could not, or her office notified me at 5:30 that she would not be able to make it tonight. We'll see if there'll be another date when she may be able to come, but we'll wait and see what our schedules look like. So that leaves us down to a topic as it relates to the Beitner Properties RFP. And just to go through a quick background, back in January, an ad hoc committee made of myself, Mr. Warner, and Mr. Wilson was convened to start the discussion to develop an RFP as it relates to the Beitner property. We utilized the services of Mr. Bacigalupi to help us with that. He had worked with the city prior to that on the Lot O RFP, so there was a great starting point from that instead of having to try to recreate the wheel. I believe our main focus was to take what had been done before, go through the errors and things that we could have done better to come up with a better RFP for this particular property. If nothing else, we now have a better base for an RFP for future properties, regardless of which way this one particular goes. So with that, the one issue that we took us a little time to get resolved was that the front lot, as many people may or may not realize, there are 3 separate parcels here that's under discussion. And there had been an agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers that the very front parcel, the one that's closest to Woodmere, would be used as more or less like a laydown yard once the fish pass construction gets started. We, thanks to Frank and others, they did some discussions. The Army Corps of Engineers is open to other locations. We put in the packet the other locations that could be possible if that's what needs to be done. So that took us a little while to get resolved before we could complete our report. I think the RFP is pretty much self-explanatory. I'm just going to open it up, and Mr. Bacigalupi had other commitments for tonight, so I'm just going to. I think it's pretty straightforward, unless y'all have some questions. I know that two of us members of the have different opinion whether we should be putting the RFP out. We make it no bones about that, and I'm the one who doesn't believe we should be selling this property. Of course, that position's been known since day one, so that's not a surprise to anybody. The other one is that Mr. Warner has a different point of view. I'm not asking Mr. Wilson. He can offer his own version when he wants. We will not want to put this on next week's agenda for any kind of a vote if that's what we need to do. Mr. Warner will not be here. He has a very important task that he has to perform in the next week with his family. So the earliest that we'll have it on the agenda, unless something else comes up, will be on September the 5th. I think that's what we'll do that. So, like I said, this could be pretty quick, but unless someone's got some other discussions, Tim, Mark, I'll let you fill in anything else.
No, that's it. But just in response, Richard and I had a brief conversation just before the meeting about kind of there's a lot in the timeline, but back in January, end of December, kind of what transpired there, because the topic was on our agendas multiple times. It was, but what I was referencing, even here, it's hard to see what the date was. December 19th, if that was a Monday, give or take, was when we made the motion that carried 6-1, and in it, so I'm reading the minutes here, is that the city manager proceed with the assistance of Mission North LLC to draft and issue a workforce housing RFP for the redevelopment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We can always change our mind, but to me, it said draft and issue, like with the clear intent to move this forward, and that's what we were voting on. Again, we can always change our minds, but that's what was in there.
And I was going off the January 17th meeting where the ad hoc committee was created. It didn't say anything. It says develop the RFP, but it doesn't say anything about issuing the RFP. But, so we'll take it from there. With that, we'll try to answer any questions. So there you go.
Did Mark, did you want to talk?
No, I don't know that I have much more to add other than I've been torn the whole time. If there's a more appropriate spot for something like this to be offered to, I think we should explore that. But and there's other things that we, as a commission and along with staff, could discuss what could be used with that property administratively.
I guess one thing I was going to say was, if this were to come before us for a vote, one of the points I made, either it was December or January, and much like you guys, I don't remember either, but I will not vote for any RFP that doesn't include a specific requirement that there be the absolute maximum possible noise canceling available as far as insulation or anything else. We are putting this property next to not just train tracks, which I also live close to those very same train tracks, but also DPS, which runs many months of the year with winter, trucks all morning, very early hours, all day. And if this is meant to be workforce housing for people who might have families, work from home, other things that we have in our area that we know are very common, I won't approve this. This is not a let them eat cake situation. So I think there are some other properties that we have that I know there's been some movement on, even right off of Woodmere itself down the way. I think I'd prefer to see those. I wouldn't say no to an RFP here, though, as long as it is treating people with the respect they deserve.
I'm wanting to hear Nate's feedback from staff and updating us on that, and also some more information about properties that could be used instead of these 3 parcels.
Sure, I'd be happy to. It's tricky when you have something like this, and it's clear the commission really would like to act with urgency on housing and other priorities as well. Again, the challenge that we've been kind of talking about since I've been here is there's a lot of moving pieces that are going on right now that make a quick decision much more complicated. I don't think it's any surprise that, as far as I can tell, staff is still totally against this as they were when this was first brought up. Some of the concerns were discussed by Mayor Pro Tem Shamro. We've lost uses of public property because of backup noise. And I think that's some of the concern here is what happens after you put that there. We've all probably been familiar with situations where you build a subdivision next to the freeway, and then the next thing you know, the residents are looking for a noise wall. Well, the freeway was there first, right? So how do you address that? In the memo that I put together, I did try to summarize some of that stuff, but I didn't really want to dwell on that. I really wanted to kind of just focus on what's going on right now. And what's going on right now is a very productive, collaborative conversation between the county and the city. And this has to do with the master plan work of all the county facilities. And back when this first started, I don't know exactly how it came about, but the city asked, can we put our properties on there as well and go through this assessment process? To boil it down, where the conversation is at right now is looking at what I call the three, what did I call it?
Campus.
The three campus plan. Thank you, Mayor. And what that is it's basically reconfiguring county city operations across three campuses. Those three campuses in this concept are Boardman, which is where we're at right now, DPS off Woodmere, and then the Lafreniere site. What we believe we know right now is the law enforcement center is most likely going to be decommissioned. It doesn't meet the needs of the shared operation. There's strong consensus that the collaboration between the city and the county in the sheriff's office is a good thing and could be better. So there is some sensitivity to separating those. Additionally, looking at this site, does it make sense for the jail to remain on the Boardman site? The general consensus right now is no, probably not. That can probably be put elsewhere. And then Lafreniere, that gets to be in more county operations, so it's a little harder for me to talk through those things. But there is room on that site for the county to reconfigure. A lot of discussion as far as, having accessibility to county building services and things like that in this building, along with like our planning and all of our clerk operations and everything. So what this potential three-campus model would look like is, and I think Chris with the county will be okay with me talking through some of this, is the jail would likely not be at this site. So what does that do? It allows us to free up an area that could be used for parking. Do we need all that parking? No, probably not. Well, what that does is it allows us to reorient the site. And when I say better opportunities for housing, I don't mean like better as in their better location. I mean it doesn't impact city operations in a negative way. So what could, and I want to emphasize could, because this is not city property, this is county property, but what could happen is we could free up this lot where most of the employees park now to some sort of a housing development. And the county has been very open to being a part of that conversation throughout. If the law enforcement center became available, does that become an opportunity for attainable housing or workforce? This idea on the DPS site, I've only just started talking with the fire department, but are there opportunities to move fire too? We've got attainable housing going in like 1 or 2 parcels down from there right now. It would be a good way to augment that, and the DPS campus is only like a half mile from that 8th Street site. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but those are some of the sites that could become available. As you may have seen in the ticker this morning, you'll see that the county's also been engaging with the TCAPS regarding the administration building across the street. That's something that Chris and I have been working and talking about and have met with the schools. So there is a lot of activity that is taking place to try to address these priorities of the city commission. The other piece that I would just throw out there, as I tried to let the commission know, is we've had multiple parties asking us about
850 Woodmere.
850 Woodmere, which is a long kind of stretch along the lake. And I'll offer you an unsolicited recommendation. I think what would be a great way to move forward, knowing that we have interest in those properties, would be to direct our efforts to have the city attorney begin the process to get the deed restrictions lifted and put the RFP out on that site. Because we've got 2 property owners adjacent that have both come to us talking about, let's redevelop that site for attainable housing or workforce housing, affordable housing, whichever target you want to focus on. And then we've also got, the DDA's working on the west deck, the west housing deck, whatever you want to phrase it as. And then there's a lot of other nonprofit and private players that are out there. Sean and I met with another gentleman today that is looking at coming in at the small scale and working on attainable housing that way. So there is a lot happening. But staff would be very concerned to lose this asset in the midst of a reconfiguration discussion. Long answer to your short question.
No, exactly what I wanted. So Lauren, how much would it set us back if we change the RFP to this property, this 850 Woodmere?
It's hard to know how long the state's process is because we're dealing with this, a state agency. I think now, originally the city obtained that property from what is now DNR, but now I'm told now that it's with another agency. It may be MDOT or MDOT Rail. So there's an application process that you go through, and basically what happens is you deed it back to the state, and then they deed it back to the city without the deed restriction or with a different, whatever deed restriction you kind of agree on. That's sort of the process. So I don't know how long that would take, but I don't think, the application is not onerous or anything like that. It's a form,
So not years. Weeks,
the
months.
application will not take years.
Stay.
Yeah, it's just hard to know how long it will take them to get through their process.
And it's a legislative process. So, with the connections that this community has with the state, I would hope that you could probably expedite that some. One suggestion I would have to try to keep things moving, but also keep it efficient for property owners, developers that might want to look at an RFP is let's just, for the sake of discussion, let's just focus on this Woodmere site for a minute. What if you put it out looking for letters of interest? Start with that first. Let's see who's serious about it, and see if they've got the wherewithal, and then you invite those people to participate in the RFP. Maybe that's a way to keep this moving and keep it streamlined enough to where the city commission can feel like there is progress happening. We've had a number of inquiries already about the pilot policy. I suspect with where those discussions are going, that's probably hitting an agenda near you in September, would be my guess. There are many different ways for the city commission to have an impact on housing beyond just putting city property out for RFP.
Okay. Are there any other questions? And Amy, I did put a note on, I have the original copy here so that I can remember that.
So I'm just looking at other spots as well.
Okay, Mitch.
Yes, as I've said before, I'm not opposed to the development of city land for housing purposes, and I'd be interested in seeing what could be done with any parcel of city land, including these Blaintner properties. But it is becoming increasingly clear to me, at least, that this specific parcel presents challenges that other parcels of city-owned land or other parcels of land in the city in general do not. And frankly, if it would be easier to, especially if we're looking at reorganizations and changes in how city facilities, county facilities, other agency facilities are configured, and that can free up other land, then I'd say that that may be more worthwhile to invest some effort into. At this point, yes, we've recognized that land that the city owns and doesn't currently have buildings on seems to be a low-hanging fruit, but we do invest, at this point, I would say considerable amount of consultant effort and staff time in investigating and seeing more and more reasons why this is not an optimal parcel.
Mr. Warner.
Just in quick response, the parcel does not have challenges. The challenges come from disagreement amongst humans, okay? The parcel's fine. That was part of what the ad hoc was commissioned to do, was see if there were challenges, and we addressed that. We as a body are anything but nimble. So saying, oh, we'll switch horses and find another one, and it's going to get us across the finish line. And that's not a good analogy, because this race will never be finished. There will always need more housing in our lifetimes. This particular parcel on Beitner, though, made the top of our consultants list a year and a half ago, March of '22, and there was a document with roughly 15 city-owned parcels, and Beitner was the very top of the list for various reasons. And so here we are a year and a half later. Not tonight, but we could act on this, or we can find reasons not to and change horses and continue running the race. But for a number of years, even before this commission, we've talked about a housing crisis. Crisis implies some sort of urgency, and we can always find reasons to, slow things down, shift a little here or there. We will never make everybody happy. It's not a reason to move forward with it, but certainly I look forward to a discussion in September.
For that September discussion, I'd like to request that we have that housing list again shared, because my recollection was not that it was number one.
No.
It was that it was further down, because there are light and power lines that run along this because of its proximity to DPS. It was on the list, definitely on the list. I'm not arguing that point. But it was, as I recall, like the list was kind of split up between optimal, kind of mid-range, and then suboptimal or not usable. And my recollection was this was more in the mid because of all these other issues. So I think it's a bit, I won't say false, I think it's just a bit that off the point that saying that this is like a prime piece when we looked at all of our properties available, because it really wasn't indicated as such because of those factors. Now, I agree with Commissioner Warner that this is going to be a problem for forever, and at some point we should be looking at all of our properties. But again, with its location and, yes, we do need housing, but I'm not, my concern is that we are going to throw housing wherever, however, and even if we say we want to have, and I still would consider it, but even if we say in there must have proof of soundproofing and everything else like that, I don't trust that we won't have bids that come in without that then we will be pushed to vote to accept, even though I think that is subpar housing for humans to live in. So I think that's just part of the complications of this property. At the end of the day, maybe it is the will that we go forward with this. I'm very interested, though, of what we could do with 850 Woodmere. It is a bit more of a process, but we've switched out state property before in my time, and I feel like that is something that Lauren is very adept at doing and could do again.
Let me ask a question on 850. Do you need authorization to move, or can you just start the process?
No, I'd need you to direct me to do that.
Okay, can we have that on next week's agenda so
Sure.
we can get that moving?
One way or another, we can look at it.
Regardless of this property, but still, it needs to be moving forward. Because I think that was also the property, Tim, that you thought about, that we needed to get a trail connection down through. So that's another thing.
Parts of it.
Everything has its complications. Like that one has the complications. If you look at the maps, Sheffer Road is not linear. It's this crazy curve, maybe from an old railroad or whatnot. And so we can hope and dream and wish and pray all we want, but another milkshake, I bet you this adds at least a year to the timeline.
Perhaps, but also maybe another milkshake on you, and I want strawberry this time, is that we can perhaps get our pilot project going, we have other projects that'll be moving forward that'll help us along too. So that also depends on the three of us, and I think we made a good start this morning, so we'll take it from there.
Can I make one last comment from staff?
Sure.
Thank you. I just want to be very clear for the city commission's benefit that we want you guys to be successful ultimately, but we also want you to be successful not at the expense of city operations, and that's our main concern. I think, yes, there may be some time added to the timeline, but I truly believe that if we continue to work on the path that we're on, and I'm only talking about city, county properties, I'm not talking about other parcels, but I truly believe that there is an opportunity, continuing to work with the county, building that relationship. Their tools are being expanded as well as ours, that there is going to be additional opportunities beyond just this one parcel.
And also, I know we had a small discussion this morning that at the DPS, there are other parts of that DPS that also could be utilized to help expand some projects, because, we got some space over there that's used mainly for just storage. Is there something else that could be done there? So there's an opportunity that hopefully when the study comes back says, you got other things that you can be doing here instead of storing paper, So anyway, we'll wait and see. All right. With that, I would like to see this on the May 5th, on our September 5th agenda.
Sixth.
So it's the 5th.
It's the fifth.
Is the Tuesday?
Yeah, how time flies. So that we can have a direction up or down. Is that fair enough? Unless you got other questions. And I'll make sure Rob knows about this, and that way it's in his wheelhouse if we move forward with it. So with that, I'm going to open this up on 850 Woodmere.
That'll be on
There'll
next week.
be on next week's agenda. You can see more about that possibility. There will be a map to where that's located. So that'll be taken from there. Is there anyone from the public who would like to add to this?
We ask that you state your name and address, indicate if you are a city resident, non-city resident, and/or city business owner. We have a 3-minute time allotment per speaker. When your time is elapsed, the timer will beep, and finally, we request that all language be respectful to all parties.
You make it tough.
I try.
Rick Buckholder, 932 Kelly Street. I'm a Traverse City resident. I heard some things that really troubled me tonight, and I only have 3 minutes to comment on it. So number one, I agree that the Beitner property is a bad location for what you're proposing. And, Commissioner Werner, you and I agree on a lot of things, but this is one that could have been done better. Second, you keep referring to your consultant and his recommendation on this. To my knowledge, your consultant has no real estate background. I don't even know why you hired him. The study that he did, the city already did. It was paid for. The only new information that came out of the study where you paid him to look at city properties was the Y on South Cass Road. Nothing else was new, and nothing else had changed in relation to the other properties. Also, I was standing here about 12, 15 years ago, and I saw Tim Burden talking to the then city commission about the city properties by the filling station and where Safe Harbor is now, but mainly that group where they have those condos and the hobbit houses by the filling station. And he was going to put in a huge, huge apartment complex. And think about all the money you spent on housing between then and now. And he asked the city to put in a sewer pump-up station for $90,000. And if they did that, he would build hundreds of apartments, up to 5 stories. And they blew him off. Second, Tom Darga was going to put in a facility with hundreds of apartments and a parking deck where that Breaker's place is now, and the Planning Commission and City Commission blew him off. I mean, I don't have time to give you suggestions. 3 minutes goes really fast, but I want to get in here to the acting city manager. You said some things that really concern me that will probably lead to referendums or worse. One about building housing out at the other on the city parking property, city county parking property out here. And the other one that really concerned me was, it sounded like you're talking about merging the police with the county, and that's what it sounded like. What you're doing, I don't know, but that's what
we
it sounded
just told
like.
you it's not.
Okay,
Okay.
but that's what it sounded like.
No, It's not.
I got it.
Well, then quit saying it, please. Okay.
So anyway, the smartest thing you could do is to find what properties you could purchase for housing through a bond, a housing bond. Because you just don't have reasonable city properties to put enough housing on to be impactful, yet you're spending all this time, spending all this money and jumping through all these hoops when you shouldn't be doing it. You should be negotiating with professionals to get the money, secure a property. You get the property, the housing organization builds it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello, folks. I'm Jackie Anderson, 1725 Comanche Street in Traverse City. And I just wanted to thank Commissioner Werner for reminding us of the urgency of this situation. I fear that the actions that you're discussing right now are indeed going to result in a delay of a period of years over adding to our affordable housing stock. And it's a hair on fire emergency. And thank you, Commissioner Warner, for reminding us of that.
Okay, anyone else? Okay.
Justin Reed, 630 Cottage Drive, Apartment 1B, Traverse City resident. So the DPW property off from Woodmere, you've got two fire stations that are kind of old and obsolete, and you talk about going ahead and how the law enforcement center is getting to the point where that building is getting obsolete as well. So if we're talking about city services, those city services are going to expand, and you're going to need more of that property next to DPW for that. Look into doing a public safety building, so fire, ambulance, and police can be in that area right there. Because the Front Street Fire Station is an issue with the backup of traffic on Front Street. So I would highly suggest that maybe looking at the campus over from the DPW right there, thinking about maybe moving some of your emergency services over there, and keeping that property for that. Because as it was said, that it's next to the tracks, and housing next to tracks is very noisy. Well, if that's the case, then why not going ahead and put a public safety building over there? Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. We'll be seeing this in about a month. Thank you very much. And we'll have the 850 Woodmere on for next week, so the city attorney start with that. There are more comments I can make, but I'll wait until the 5th. With that, and I'm glad you brought up the 850 because I had it on my notes. So with that, is there any other public comment? Open it up for anything else. You've had your, no, go ahead, I'm teasing.
Oh, yeah, I was here 5 seconds ago. So, over there on Silver Drive and 11th Street, during the Grand Traverse Commons art craft show, is the buses that come to that corner right there have enough hard time trying to make a turn right there. But when traffic is parking in between the two stop signs, next to the control devices, and there's no parking signs right there, it's makes it more worse for the bus. So I did some looking to that, and there is a city ordinance that says that you're not allowed to park next to a control device. And you'd have to get permission from the city to get a permit to go ahead and put anything like cones or anything like that to block off that no parking area. So to me, that's a challenge, and just letting the city commission know about that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment? Okay. Well,
Holy cow.
I have a quick commissioner comment.
no, that's not on our agenda. We can't do, there's nothing on the agenda. that says-
So anyways, I think people want to hear this.
Okay, go.
So 1129 Woodmere this Saturday, starting at 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. or until the books are gone. There's going to be a book sale, $5 per person. Donations will be going to Friends of the Library. It's not Friends of the Library sale, so it's a much more haphazard. They do a great job. I don't want to sully their name with this, but they will get the donations. There will be a lot of books. It's BYOB, bring your own bag or box, whatever you can fill up for $5 a person. We're getting, where I work, there's a lot of books that we get, so we're putting them out for sale to be donated, and then the money to be donated to the Friends. It's a great opportunity for people who have maybe little free libraries or have some teachers that need some books for their classrooms, or just you want to check out some new books that maybe you haven't seen before. So we hope people will stop by, and again, they'll be there till 1 p.m. or until they're gone, starting at 10 a.m. Thanks.
Thank you.
Did you say 1129?
1129 Woodmere.
Okay. Thank you. With that, unless there's anything else, this meeting is hereby adjourned. We could have been done 3 minutes. No.
I talked really quickly.
Thank you. Okay, thanks.
3 hours last time, 35 minutes this time. It's just,
Ebbs and
no
flows.
telling.